Derek puts $5,000 on a credit card. Maybe it was an emergency, a car repair, a medical bill, a trip he told himself he deserved. Doesn't matter what it was for. What matters is what happens next. Derek makes the minimum payment every month, like millions of people do, because it's on the statement. It's the safe number, and paying it feels responsible. Here's what nobody puts on that statement in big letters. If Derek only pays the minimum, that $5,000 is going to take him over 19 years to pay off. 19 years. Not 19 months, 19 years. And by the time Derek finally makes that last payment, his $5,000 purchase will have actually cost him more than $11,000. He will have paid more in interest than he originally spent. Let that sit for a second, because we're not done. The truly disturbing part isn't even the 19 years or the $11,000. It's how invisible the whole thing is while it's happening. Derek's balance barely moves for years. He pays every single month, on time, responsibly, and it feels like he's getting nowhere, because for a long time, he actually is. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why that happens, down to the math. And you're going to see the one number that changes everything. A number so simple it feels almost unfair that nobody hands it to you the day you open a credit card. So stay with me, because somewhere in the next 15 minutes, you might recognize your own statement in this video. And once you see it, you won't look at minimum payment due the same way again. Let's start with the trap. Derek has a $5,000 balance on a credit card. The interest rate is 22%, which is right around the national average for credit cards in recent years. Not a punishing rate, not an unusually bad card, just an ordinary one. His statement comes in. It says, minimum payment due, $125. Derek looks at that number, and it feels completely reasonable. $125 a month. He can do that. He pays it. On time, every month. He feels responsible. He feels like he's handling it. Here's what he doesn't see on the statement, because no credit card company is required to make this part obvious. That minimum payment isn't a fixed amount that slowly chips away at his balance in a predictable way. It's typically calculated as a small percentage of his remaining balance, often somewhere between 1% and 3%, plus that month's interest charge. Which means as Derek's balance slowly goes down, his minimum payment goes down too, which means the amount he's required to pay shrinks at almost exactly the pace his debt should be shrinking. It's a moving target that moves backward right alongside him. Derek isn't doing anything wrong. He's doing exactly what the system asks of him. That's what makes this section uncomfortable. There's no villain making a mistake here. There's just a system quietly designed so that the responsible, minimum, safe choice is also the slowest, most expensive one available. Let's see exactly how slow. Let's run Derek's numbers, fully and honestly. $5,000 balance, 22% annual interest rate, which works out to a little under 1.83% charged on the balance every single month. Derek pays only the minimum, which we'll model realistically as 2% of the remaining balance or $25, whichever is greater, a standard formula many card issuers actually use. Month 1. Derek's balance is $5,000. Interest charge that month is about $91. His minimum payment is $125. Subtract the interest, and only about $34 actually goes toward the original $5,000 he borrowed. His real balance only drops by $34, even though he just paid $125. Month 2. The balance is roughly $4,966. The interest charge is almost the same, because the balance barely moved. The minimum payment recalculates slightly lower, since it's a percentage of a number that hasn't really changed. This pattern repeats, month after month, interest eating almost the entire payment, the actual debt declining by single-digit dollar amounts some months. If Derek sat down and watched his balance update every 30 days for the first year, he would see something that looks less like progress and more like standing still in expensive quicksand. Run that pattern forward, with the minimum payment recalculating and shrinking every single month as his balance very slowly drops. And here's where the math lands. It takes Derek approximately 19 years and 7 months to pay off that $5,000 balance. Total interest paid over that time? Just over $6,300. Total amount paid, principal plus interest combined, more than $11,300. A $5,000 purchase, paid for, in the end, with $11,300, more than double. And here's a detail that makes it sting even more. For the first several years of those 19, the majority of every single payment Derek makes goes to interest, not principal. He could make that minimum payment faithfully for 3, 4, even 5 years and look at his statement to find his balance has barely moved from where he started. That's not a malfunction. That's the math working exactly as designed. This is the part that confuses people the most, so let's slow down and actually look at why it feels the way it feels. Interest on a credit card is calculated on whatever balance remains. When the balance is large, near the beginning, the interest charge each month is also large. When Derek makes a minimum payment that's only slightly bigger than that month's interest charge, almost the entire payment gets consumed just covering the interest. Only the small leftover sliver actually reduces what he owes. Picture a bathtub with the drain barely cracked open and the faucet running nearly as fast as the water drains out. The water level looks almost the same every time you check it, even though water is technically leaving the tub the whole time. That's what a minimum payment against high-interest debt looks like in the early years. Technically progress, practically invisible. It's only once the balance has dropped significantly, which, at this pace, can take a decade or more, that the interest charges shrink enough for a larger portion of each payment to start actually attacking the principal. The progress accelerates near the end, the same way our compound interest example from the investing video accelerated near the end. Except here it's working against Derek instead of for him. This is why so many people feel like they're bad with money, when really they're just experiencing the predictable result of a structurally slow payoff method. The frustration isn't a personal failing, it's basic interest math, operating exactly the way it's built to operate. Nobody told Derek that the speed of payoff is almost entirely controlled by one number, how much above the minimum he's willing to pay. Which brings us to the number that actually matters. Let's rewind. Same Derek, same $5,000 balance, same 22% interest rate, but this time, instead of paying whatever the shrinking minimum happens to be each month, Derek picks one fixed number and commits to it every single month, no matter what the statement says the minimum is. He picks $200 a month. Not a dramatic number, not a windfall, just $75 more than his original minimum payment, roughly the cost of 2 or 3 takeout orders he wouldn't even remember a year from now. Let's run that math. At a steady $200 a month against a $5,000 balance at 22% interest, here's what happens. Derek pays it off in approximately 2 years and 7 months. Total interest paid over that time, roughly $1,280. Total amount paid, principal plus interest, about $6,280. Let's put both versions side by side. Minimum payments only, 19 years and 7 months. Total cost, $11,300. Fixed $200 a month, 2 years and 7 months. Total cost, $6,280. Same starting debt, same interest rate, same Derek. The only thing that changed was refusing to let the minimum payment be the number that runs his life. He didn't negotiate a lower interest rate. He didn't transfer the balance. He didn't do anything clever or complicated. He just picked a number bigger than the minimum and stuck to it every single month. The same way our investing example from the last video just kept adding $100 a month without fail. The lever here isn't complicated. It's just uncomfortable, because it usually means finding room in a budget that already feels tight. But the alternative, staying on the minimum payment path, isn't actually the comfortable option either. It just disguises its discomfort by spreading it out over 19 years instead of concentrating it into a few harder years up front.
Here's where this gets personal, because this isn't really a video about Derek anymore. If you have any kind of revolving credit card balance right now, somewhere on your last statement is a number labeled minimum payment due. That number was not designed with your timeline or your interest in mind. It was designed to be the smallest amount you're legally required to pay, which, by definition, makes it the slowest, most expensive path available to you. You are never required to pay only that number. You are only required to pay at least that number. The difference between those two ideas is 19 years and roughly $5,000 extra in Derek's case. Your numbers might look different depending on your balance and your rate, but the shape of the math is the same for everyone carrying revolving debt. This isn't a video telling you that debt is shameful or that anyone who carries a balance has failed at adulting. Life happens. Emergencies happen. Sometimes a balance is the only option available at the time, and that's a completely reasonable thing to carry without guilt. But once it exists, how you treat it from this point forward is the only thing you actually have control over. And the math is clear about which choice costs less, even if it asks more of you in the short term.
We started this video with Derek swiping a card for $5,000. But this was never really a video about a credit card purchase. It's the same idea we keep coming back to in this series. Money is stored time, and interest, in either direction, is what happens to that stored time while you're not paying attention to it. In our investing video, time worked in our character's favor while he slept. Here, time has been working against Derek the entire time he assumed he was simply being responsible. The minimum payment isn't evil. It's just the slowest door out of the room. There's almost always a faster one sitting right next to it, usually requiring nothing more exotic than a slightly bigger number and a little more discipline holding that number steady month after month. $5,000 doesn't have to become $11,300. It only becomes that if the minimum payment is the number left in charge. So here's the assignment, if you want it. Pull up your actual statement, find your actual minimum payment, and ask yourself honestly whether that number is the one you want quietly running the math on your financial life for the next 2 decades. You might find you're already paying more than the minimum, and you're closer to free than you realized. Or you might find the number that's been running things behind the scenes, and now you finally know what it's actually costing you. If this video changed how you look at your own credit card statement, hit subscribe. This is The Real Math of Money, where we take the financial systems that were built to confuse you and make them simple enough to actually understand. See you in the next one.